These are Nerf guns. What the heck?
You remember when we were kids and Nerf used to make, like, sports equipment that wouldn't, like, hurt you?
But look at this.
No, it's like, here's a pump-action cannon.
And they hurt.
That's the exact opposite of the point of Nerf.
Welcome back to Cartridge Based Radio. I am Donald, and joined as always by Brad.
Hey.
Brad, we're going to talk about one of the best games ever made, Final Fight.
I believe we did a Final Fight show about a month or two ago. So I don't think I mean, it's a great game, but I don't know if it needs 2 episodes in the same, like, month span.
Fine, the prequel to Final Fight, Double Dragon.
All right, now we're talking. You know, funny thing, I forget what I was doing. I was doing some stupid online quiz or whatever, and one of the questions was, do you still talk to your first love? And I thought, well, as a matter of fact, I do. I say things like, oh, Double Dragon, you're so awesome. And it responds with punch noises and 8-bit music.
Your eyes are so dreamy, Double Dragon.
Never leave me, Double Dragon.
And it won't. So, Double Dragon, you got info for us, or we flying blind here?
Let's see. We're going to be talking mainly about the arcade version. Was a 1987 release, and it is great. There was a Nintendo version that came along that was kind of made some changes. There's the Sega Genesis version, which is pretty true to the arcade, but it's actually, the graphics are a little bit better, so that's a nice little bonus. But that's actually an unlicensed Genesis game from Accolade that does not have the Sega seal of approval or seal of quality or whatever.
Those bootleg Double Dragon games. It's like the most Double Dragon thing you can do. Earlier this week I told you I had only played the NES version.
Yes.
And I hadn't played the arcade version because our arcade never had it. The first time I ever saw Double Dragon, I was like, oh, this is a hot NES game. And you say 86?
I think it says 87 on the title screen.
So literally 30 years later, you're like, there was an arcade version, and my world was wrecked. Because, wow, those games are not the same.
No, the arcade version is pretty great. And I had a lot of friends who either didn't go to arcades much or whatever. They really only played the NES one. They're like, oh, this game's super fun. And I'm playing, I'm just like, this is not. It's nothing. It's not Double Dragon, and it's not that good.
So Double Dragon starts with a girl standing outside of a garage, and a dude walks up and punches her.
Yeah, just decks her right in the stomach as hard as he can.
And if I'm understanding this game clearly, she was dating both the brothers?
It's a little unclear.
They decide, in the Mike Hagar way, to start punching everyone they see in order to find her.
Yes. It's a good plan.
It works 100% of the time in video games.
As long as you're moving from left to right.
Early on in the game, I saw something that I need to ask you about.
Okay.
Have you ever enjoyed an automobile from the Scoop Moto company?
I have not.
It's like a 4-door VW Bug. And for some reason, there's just this giant billboard. It's the only billboard in the game. It just says Scoop Moto.
Yeah, there are 2 cars in the game. There's the Scoop Moto that is prominently advertised for one level. And the very opening scene, the 2 brothers have this awesome looking Trans Am. For whatever reason, they decide not to go drive to the enemy fortress.
In my notes, I have a question about this car.
Yeah.
So the garage door rolls up.
Yeah.
And the car revs. And then they just walk away. Who's in the car revving it? Is there a third dragon brother?
Maybe it's like Knight Rider, where the car is kind of autonomous. And it just, it revs to cheer them on. Whereas like Kit was kind of like a wuss, and he's like, Michael, I don't think we should try to jump over that canal. Like, this car's just like, go kick some ass.
Now, are we sure there's not like the third brother Kevin sitting in the driver's seat, and they're like, yo, Kevin, just stay here. We got this.
It was like years before I learned that the Dragon Brothers had names. On the arcade cabinet, like in the game, and I don't know how people found this information out, but in the game, I guess they're called, they're the Lee brothers, Billy and Jimmy. But on the arcade cabinet, it's just like this picture, like this drawing of the two of them. They look super buff and jacked and like waxed and shiny, and they're making muscles. And like under the blue one, it says Hammer, and under the red one, it says Spike. So I guess there would have to be like an orange one, and he would be like hand saw or something.
So yeah, that's weird. Did they not think we could handle names like Billy and Jimmy?
I'm always curious about how the information about things like character names gets around, especially back then. There was no internet, anything like that. Like, people knew that the final boss, the guy with the machine gun, his name's Jeff. People knew this. I always just called him the machine gun guy.
Is that Jeff or Geof?
No, it's Jeff because it.
Okay, so it's a real Jeff.
Yeah, it was the 80s. The fake Jeff hadn't been invented yet, I don't think.
Now, I said earlier in joking that maybe they didn't think we could handle their real names, and then I started thinking we actually can't handle their real names because in a later Double Dragon it was Jimmy and Bimmy.
What kind of...
Due to a translation error. I think it's the Double Dragon 3 for the NES that it's Jimmy and Bimmy.
No one on the English conversion team was just like, hey, that's not a name. We should probably just change that to something that's a name.
Or they're like, hey, this game is complete garbage. Who cares? Double Dragon did fall from grace quite roughly.
Yeah.
Now, this game has a very cool layout. Everything sort of flows together, unlike Final Fight that's just like, here's a level, here's a level, here's a level. It's one continuous flow. It's really enjoyable. But my question is about the conveyor belt.
Yeah.
What's through that doorway that just like instantly murders everyone?
See, that is an interesting question because you start the game off and you're kind of like in this alleyway. And that's the first level. And then the second level is kind of like the back of a factory. So like where the trucks would come in to unload or whatever. And you fight like through some piles of steel girders or whatever that are just laying there. And you get to the building. And there's the conveyor belt that goes into the building, which I guess you would figure like the trucks would unload and put the items that they're unloading onto the conveyor belt. But you wouldn't order a shipment of something and then have the truck drop it off and just have it run through a shredder, or a wood chipper or something. Like, that's not a good way to run a business. I have a lot of questions about this factory because when you get there, the door opens up and, like, a dude and two ladies with whips come out through the door. So I guess they were working there. And I guess these ladies just bring their whips to work every day. And then as soon as they see you, they're like, all right, I need a 15-minute break. I got to go whip this guy.
Maybe they were just about to go clubbing and you showed up to punch them onto the conveyor belt. And they're like, we don't know what to do. Like that dude in Temple of Doom, where he's like, I don't know how to get away from this. And it slowly rolls him.
Maybe there's nothing dangerous at the end of that conveyor belt. Maybe they just have to go back to work. Like they're back in the building and they're like, well, I guess I got to start my shift up. And if you go in there, then you get a job and you're no longer, you know how it is in life. You have dreams and goals and aspirations, and then real life comes along. You have to get a job, and those things kind of go by the wayside. So they get real jobs, and punching people and rescuing girlfriends just kind of, real life gets in the way.
Yeah, life comes at you fast.
Maybe they all work there normally, and that's how they all know each other.
They're just like, hey, the guys from the garage are down the street. Hey, let's go say hi to him. Jimmy's really cool. And he's so blind with rage that his girlfriend got kidnapped, he just starts punching his friends in the face. And they're like, dude, we're going to have to talk about Abobo.
Okay.
But more specifically, what is going on with Abobo's cranium?
Nothing good.
Was he in some sort of factory accident?
Heads aren't supposed to be that shape, normally.
It's like he has a tube, but it's got a domed top sitting above his eyebrows. And he's just so mad that he didn't get the role of the Kool-Aid Man, that he just keeps bursting through walls and he's like, oh yeah.
He's like the Kool-Aid Man of your nightmares. Like, normally Kool-Aid Man bursts through a wall, he's like, oh yeah, and you're like, yeah, Kool-Aid. And this guy's just like, and like picks you up and throws you over his shoulder and kills you.
And Abobo is 10 times larger than everyone else in this thing. If you think about this in, like, real world, Abobo would be this horrific mutant, like, lumbering thing that just bursts through walls and starts beating on random people.
It's almost like Abobo is Shaq, and everybody else is a child. Like, that's what this game actually is. It's a bunch of kids running around, beating each other up, and then, like, Shaq just bursts through a wall and starts wrecking everything.
Just Shaq beats up children. He's got this whole, like, thing built in his house that looks just like Double Dragon, and he makes children run through it so he can slam them into the ground. Oh, we talk about Shaq a lot in this show.
We have a couple of go-tos, and Shaq is my go-to for unusually large man, because that is an unusually large man.
It's true. Now, I didn't know Machine Gun Guy had a name, so Jeff.
Yes.
I beat Double Dragon twice this week, because once you discover the arcade version exists, you need to play it more than one time, because, wow, it's so good. Jeff's plan was it to take Maria, I think that's her name, hang her by a rope on a post and then wait for the brothers? Or was this some, like, he's like, if you date me, I'll let you down?
I think he just wanted to spruce the place up. Their evil fortress that's made out of gold and ancient statues. And he's like, this place is pretty nice, but what it needs is like a lady hanging from the wall with a rope tied around her waist.
And how many building code violations did that place acquire? Because, I mean, there's like a row of spikes at the bottom of his little throne room that you can just fall off and die. Anyone could just trip, like, mopping the floor and be dead. And then he's got some OSHA problems.
Building code regulations state that there should be a railing that's about 3 feet high to prevent that from happening. And it's just not present. But I think that's that's the upside of building your fortress secretly inside a mountain on the outskirts of town, is that the building inspector just doesn't really come out your way.
And you've got statues with spears that stab people
indiscriminately.
Yeah, it doesn't care who it's stabbing. I mean, Jeff could get stabbed.
Yeah.
Why is Jeff the only person with a gun? It's like, oh, I have pissed off these two masters of karate, but I'm going to keep a gun. You guys just use your faces.
The level of violence escalates pretty quickly, because in the first level, like, the first 3 or 4 guys that you fight, you're just punching. And then all of a sudden, like, a lady comes at you with a whip, and she's trying to whip you, and you beat her up. And then there's a guy with a bat, and, things are already, stuck, and it's a big aluminum baseball bat. If you got hit with that, you might die. You definitely would break bones. And then, shortly after that, there's a guy with a knife who just, like, whips a knife at you. And then you fight Abobo, who's, like, just a weapon all on his own. And then the very next level, right at the beginning of the second level, a dude chucks a stick of dynamite at you. Like, where did... There's so many issues with this. Like, where did he get dynamite? Why does he think this is a good idea?
And the dynamite messes everybody up when it goes off, not just you. So he just lit a stick of dynamite and threw it into a group of his friends. He's like, hopefully that will get Jimmy.
And then he sticks around, too. Like, if I threw dynamite at somebody, I would be out of there.
Because you're going to get goop on you.
Oh, yeah.
When that goes off, it's going to be nasty.
That's the best case scenario of throwing dynamite at someone, is you get goop on you.
You might bring down that building right next to where you threw the dynamite.
Yeah.
So these games, like Final Fight, Double Dragon, why do all the female characters have whips? What was going on in the late 80s that they're like, oh, all women walk around with whips?
Now, that's not totally fair. If you play Final Fight, the girls in Final Fight don't have whips. They have handcuffs. So, I mean, let's not get this all mixed up.
I thought there was someone with a whip in Final Fight.
I don't think there is.
I guess Poison's just like, I got handcuffs, whatever. The ladies in Double Dragon have the most poofy bouffant of hair. It's huge. It's like bigger than their torso.
And they're wearing like these like pink unitards with like the boots that look like those like silvery like snow boots, like the moon boots. Like this, they got their whips, they got their unitards. This is some hot action.
It looks like they kind of shopped at the same place as the females in Bad Dudes shop. But these seem much more violent towards you than the Bad Dudes ladies who are just out for a jog.
Yeah, I mean, the jury's still out on if those were actually enemies or just like ladies that we stabbed. But the Double Dragon women definitely want to like wreck your day.
You know, we usually decide, are they good or are they bad? This one's going to be very hard to tell because I believe that before the game starts, things had already escalated to a point that they thought it would be a good idea to go take their girlfriend. What did the boys do to piss off Jeff so bad that Jeff thought this was a correct course of action?
You know, I would be fascinated by a Double Dragon prequel because really, I mean, for those of you who have never played it and never seen it, the intro to Double Dragon is exactly as we described. There's a lady standing in front of a building. 4 guys walk up to her. One punches her in the stomach, throws her over his shoulder, and walks away. There's never any dialogue. There's no indication of why this is happening. It's just like, hey, a girl, punch, walk off.
She doesn't avoid them in any way either. She just, like, they must know her. So she's like, hey, Jeff, how you doing? And then wham. And he doesn't, like, knock on the door like, I got your girlfriend. And she just goes, oof. And I guess that's enough for the brothers to hear and roll up the garage door while someone's revving a Trans Am in a closed garage.
Like, I get nervous if I see, like, 4 normal-looking people approaching me and I'm just on my own in an alleyway. Like, that makes me a little nervous. This is, like, 4, like one guy has a machine gun. It's like a guy with a machine gun and body armor and, like, 3, like, guys that look like they came right out of the Beat It video. Just, like, walk up to this lady who, you know, is just standing in a bad part of town. Like, she should probably have been a little more apprehensive about that situation.
And why is the garage named American Tear?
I don't know. TEAR. Maybe it's American Terror?
It's supposed to be Terror, but they only had enough room for American Tear. How do mechanics become so ripped and so good at karate? Were they karate masters and then decided they were mechanics?
Do we actually know that they're mechanics and not just like some guys who own a Trans Am?
Well, that looks like a garage just downtown.
Yeah. I suppose if you own a Trans Am, you end up having to become a mechanic.
Or maybe they're just dropping off their sweet Trans Am. They're like, yo, wait outside while we conduct business.
Let the men do the man stuff. You wait outside.
And she's like, you guys are morons. I'm going to go look at Facebook. And they're in there and they're like, yeah, this is my Trans Am. And the mechanic's like, Trans Ams are sweet. And they're like, you got that right. And then they hear, oof. They're like, oh no. Jeff.
Maybe it was the mechanic was checking the car, and that's what the revving is. It's just coincidental. We figured it out.
Still, why is the mechanic revving a car in a closed garage?
Because he's not very bright.
Hasn't killed me yet.
I think we need to talk about the geography on this game, because we talk about geography on this podcast a lot, and I think this is the first game we've played where the geography kind of works. And you had talked about a little bit before, and the levels transition into each other. So, you get to the end of level 1, you fight a boss, and then like that area that you fought the boss in is kind of like an in-between area for the 2 stages, and it continues like that. So you go from alleyway to behind a factory, and then there's a elevator that goes down, and you go from like the part below the factory into the woods. So the factory was, I guess, on the edge of town. And then in the woods, there's a mountain, and you climb up the mountain, and you go in the base. And it actually, for maybe the first time in the history of this podcast, it all has kind of a logic to it.
Yeah, it all flowed very nicely. I don't know why they built right up to the edge of the forest, and there's no sort of like residual build-off in the forest. It's just like there's a giant factory on the very edge of the forest, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to expand into the forest or deforest it any. We love nature.
Yeah, maybe it's like a brand new industrial park, so they like haven't developed that whole town yet. It's right there. I've worked at a couple places that were kind of like that, but usually there's some roads and infrastructure.
Question is, was Jeff in the mountain before the city started expanding towards him?
Oh, maybe this is like, he's like a woodland hermit who's trying to keep the city from taking over his property. Or
so you're saying he's a hermit with a massive army of buff karate dudes?
Yeah, a hermit that runs a street gang. So that doesn't really make sense, no. Yeah, he seems very comfortable with like urban crime, so he's probably not like an anti-city type person. But he does live in the middle of the woods with a bunch of machine guns, so maybe.
Maybe this takes place in Montana. I don't know. It's right outside Great Falls. Maybe Maria's dad is like a city planner, and he thinks if he kidnaps her, her dad will stop city planning, and no one will encroach on his mountain.
This is really just like, this is a game about standing up to gentrification. Like, all these, like, coastal elites are moving into the little town, and they're turning it into a big city full of crime, and they're coming for your guns and your way of life, and now you just gotta kidnap their women folk and lure them back to your mountain to stop these liberals from taking over your woods.
Do you think they knew that Maria was sort of dating 2 of the best karate brothers known to man? He couldn't have, because he probably would have picked someone who wasn't dating the best karate people.
There is kind of, this happened in Final Fight too, like there's just a lot of not doing your research when it comes to these kidnappings. Like, Final Fight, they kidnap Jessica, and like her dad, the mayor, is a former street fighter. Her boyfriend is a martial artist, and his best friend is a ninja. And then like Double Dragon, they kidnap this. I think her name's Marion. They kidnap her, and she's simultaneously dating these twin brothers who are both karate experts.
You, at the end, after you beat Jeff, you have to beat each other up to win her. I don't know, maybe this whole situation she set up because she didn't want to decide between the 2, so she figured if she hired Jeff to kidnap her, and then made Jimmy and Billy fight each other, she wouldn't have to be like, oh, I want one or the other. It's just whoever's not dead at the end.
there are a lot fewer women in this game than there are men. So if you assume that that's kind of representative of the city, like the man-to-woman ratio is like 9-1. It's like San Jose levels of madness. And it could and all the other women in town, are just whipping things constantly. So Marion is the only non-whips everybody person in town. She might have just decided, maybe this was a contest. Maybe she's just like, I will date whoever the toughest guy in town is. It might have been misinterpreted by some of the gang members where they're like, well, I'll prove how tough I am by punching her. Bad plan. But, that could be what it is she wants to date whoever the best fighter in the town is, and they're all competing to prove it. But kidnapping her was kind of not a nice thing to do.
What you just described is literally The Bachelorette.
But with karate. Or wait, I've never watched The Bachelorette. Does that have a ton of karate in it?
No, but I would watch The Bachelorette if it was a karate tournament.
a karate tournament where the prize is a girl. I see no way that there's no downside to that. No one would ever have a problem with that as a concept.
It just starts out with that idiot host, whatever his name is, walking out and punching her in the stomach and carrying her off. And then all the guys just have to start beating each other senseless. And then the last one who survives has to fight the host. And then he gets a date?
Stockholm Syndrome, the game show.
And when you rescue her, she's like, oh, thanks. And he's like, do you know how many people I literally just murdered to get to you? The cops are coming. If you want to say anything to me, now is the time, because I'm going away for life.
It was all self-defense and rescue related, so that's defensible in court, I think.
And even if he fails defending in court, he can just beat everyone up in the courtroom until he's innocent.
Yeah, it's like, you're going to jail, and he's like, you can try, but I'm not.
And it'd probably be a mistake to throw those brothers into an enclosed place with criminals. They're just going to wreck house.
It's going to be like that line from Watchmen, I'm not locked in here with you, you're locked in here with me.
It's just so good. I don't want to pick on it too much. It's kind of what we do.
Yeah, I kind of feel like every criticism we level at this game should come with a disclaimer of, this is one of my favorite games ever.
Oh no, I think people understand that we love the games. It's just, we love poking our finger into that story building that these games lack. Double Dragon 2, doesn't it start out with her just being straight up murdered?
I don't remember the story to Double Dragon 2. I know there was a helicopter early in the game, I think. Double Dragon 3, they travel around the world, I think, to gather artifacts. I'm pretty sure they go to Egypt at one point. This series really took a turn from, rescue kidnapped girlfriend in your hometown to, go to Egypt and punch a mummy for artifacts.
Those mummies and their artifacts. It's like, over my currently dead body will you get my artifacts? And they're like, no problem.
I need this to get to the afterlife. Dude, you've had 10,000 years. You're not getting there if you're not there already.
Yeah, you've messed up. We can't talk about Double Dragon without at least mentioning once the Hollywood feature film, where I believe they live in an abandoned movie theater. It's really hazy because I remember thinking, man, this was bad. Why did they make this?
I imagine the script just reads cut to interior, whatever building we can afford on our budget of $12.
I believe it's like this Mad Max dystopia where people drive around in armored cars shooting at each other, and these two have the mystical power of a dragon.
So it's exactly like the game.
I'm not sure how mysticism made its way into Double Dragon. If people just believe because they were called Double Dragon, obviously there was some mystical power involved. Because that'd be just really cool karate names. We're the Double Dragons. Not, we're gonna fight a mummy for artifacts for reasons.
For reasons. I got I got nothing. I got nothing to contribute to this discussion of Double Dragon the movie. It seems pretty true to the game if the game in question was Road Blasters. Like maybe they had the two machines side by side and they're like, oh, okay, so Double Dragons is this game about this armored car that drives around shooting stuff. We're going to add some dragons to that because it's in the title, but yeah, we can work with this.
I like your world where movie scripts are written by two guys who go to an arcade and just stare at the machines, taking notes.
Should we play it? No, just let it run.
This demo is all we need, and I don't have a quarter.
That's why all the arcades went out of business, after the 80s. It was just... The only people there were guys with laptops working on their scripts. It was like a Starbucks in LA, but with video games that no one was playing.
They're unplugging the machines to plug in their laptops so the battery wouldn't die. And arcade owners are like, I'm through!
Come on, I'm working on my script for Donkey Kong 3.
I'm glad there's no Donkey Kong movie.
That is something I can fully agree with you on. We need to talk about the level 2 boss. And the reason that we need to talk about the level 2 boss is that he is a guy that dresses exactly like the two main characters, except in green, and he has all their moves, and he looks just like them. Is it possible that there's a third dragon brother? The green guy?
I mean, if I had to guess, it was Seth Lee. He fell in with a bad crowd, and they're like, man, you can't do this. And he's like, you're not my boss. Sure, Dad left you in charge when he was killed by mysterious means. Like, he was in a restaurant, and a big man ran through and punched him in the head.
Oh, yeah!
So, just a Bobo squished him. It could be a Lee brother, or a guy who trained at the same dojo as the brothers.
Maybe it's their sensei.
Whoa. I mean, times are rough because he's about their same age.
It could be that the Lee brothers are actually going to a children's karate class. And they're like, we're so good at karate. And like the instructor's like, you're the same age as me. And like all the kids, all the other students are 8. We're the best at karate. We're black belts. We're not even doing belts, man.
No, everyone's a winner here. So just no belts.
You get a participation belt.
I actually was just on his way to work, and he's like, hey, those are the guys from my class. And then they kick him. They're like, who's the sensei now? And he's like, nuts. And he's one of the rougher bosses in that game.
Oh, yeah, because he knows karate.
Yeah, everyone else is just like, I'm going to swing wildly at you, and then you're going to grab me by my ears and smash my face into your knee repeatedly. I don't think that's a real karate move. Because that puts you way off balance, and someone could just take out your leg, but with so much gusto do they just keep slamming that face into the knee. That's going to mess your knee up bad.
I think if you did that in a karate tournament, you'd probably get disqualified.
And I imagine the ref would vomit. And then the police would arrive.
They're just like, all right, keep it between the shoulders and the tops of the knees. No leg sweeps. No grabbing the guy by the ears and just kneeing him in the head repeatedly.
I'm looking at you, Lee brothers. We remember last time. Oh.
No crane kicks to the head.
That has always been a question in The Karate Kid. Did he murder that fool?
Yes.
And how was the judge not like, not okay? So after they rescue her, she's all happy. He either murdered or just knocked out his brother. When his brother wakes up, he's going to be like, oh man, that wasn't cool. You can't ride my Trans Am anymore.
We are not going to the mechanic together ever again.
So at that point is, like, let's say they got married. Does he keep bringing this up? Like, every fight they have? Like, remember that time Jeff kidnapped you? Maybe I should have left you with Jeff. And she's like, maybe I'd have been happy with Jeff.
He lived in a house that was made completely out of gold and stabs.
And who let her down at the end of that fight? She just drops to the floor. Like, was she working on the rope the whole time and they just happened to show up just as she breaks through it?
Maybe she had untied it, like, early on, but, there was a guy with a machine gun there, so she couldn't just, drop down and run away. She gets shot. So she was waiting for her opportunity.
That's amazing grip strength.
Yeah. Or, maybe it was just like a granny knot. And as soon as, machine gun guy was out of the picture, she just, like untying your shoes, you just kind of pull the string. That would be great if they like kidnapped her and then they just like tied her to a wall with a granny knot. Like, you'll never get out of here.
It would really feed into our theory that she staged the whole kidnapping to get one of the brothers out of the way. And really, from kidnap to when you rescue her, it's only like 20 minutes.
Yeah, it's a short game.
They probably just got there, and they're like, we kidnapped you, and then the Lee brothers walk in right behind them, and they're like, oh, crap, you're here.
Just hang her by the waist from a post. We'll take care of these guys.
I like how Jeff walks by in the window in the background while you're fighting all the guys. He, paces back and forth a couple times, he keeps checking to see how you're doing. And he's like, walks by once, he's like, whoa, they're here. And he goes, gets a drink, he comes back. He's like, they're still here. So he has to go back and get his gun. And then he finally comes out, and he can mess you up pretty quick.
Yeah.
With one round of bullets, which should mess you up forever.
Yeah, but, this is a game where people throw dynamite at you, and you live through that. So, it's... Maybe bullets are really expensive in Double Dragon Land, because first he doesn't really want to come out. He's like, maybe my guys will take care of it. And then when he does, he'll shoot, a couple of times, but then he just, hits you with the gun, which also hurts. But, probably... If you're going to club somebody, probably the baseball bat is, a tool designed to that purpose. It's probably more effective than gun butting somebody.
Yeah, because your gun could go off as you're swinging it as a club, and then you just end up shooting yourself. I don't ever see him reload it, so I imagine it's got a large magazine, so that's not a good move.
Yeah. Unless he's... I'm not, a big gun guy. I don't know a ton about them. Maybe there's a safety that he's switching on and off every time. He's like, all right, club, all right, turn the safety off, shoot, turn the safety back on, smack the guy over the head.
I'd be more worried that when you smack him, the safety could pop off and then fire a round right into your crotch area.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't kill you, you're going to be like, hey, Jimmy, come over here. And he's like, what's up, Jeff? Snap my neck. I shot myself in the crotch, and I want to die.
It'd just be a thing you see passed along on the internet and email forwards for the next year. Oh, yeah, a guy tried to hit somebody over the head with a gun and shot himself in the crotch. Give him a Darwin Award.
And then the guy snapped his neck. Everyone would be like, why didn't you just shoot the guy with the gun in the first place? Bullets are expensive, dude.
I think in that game, besides the machine gun guy, it was really tough. There aren't a ton of bosses. The level 1 boss is just another Abobo. Level 2 boss is your doppelganger. And it kind of just alternates between those things. I think the toughest quote-unquote boss fight is the broken bridge in the forest level. That's just... No one makes that jump. That's just You get there, and it's just all right, it's kind of like a toll bridge where I have to pay $0.25 to keep playing this game, because I'm just going to jump in the pond and die, and then I'm going to continue, and I'll be on the other side of the pond.
And then if you do make it over, someone's going to grab you and throw you right back in the water.
Yeah.
I found that jump is actually easier in the Japanese version.
Oh, that's weird.
Oh, yeah. It's almost like they changed that to milk money out of people.
That doesn't seem right.
Let's talk about Abobo's family for a quick minute.
Sure.
There's a lot of people in the Abobo family.
Yes.
I think there's a green one. I don't know how he fits in. Did he get a cut on his stomach and he's just really gangrene? Because Mozzie's they thought the Hulk was cool. So we're going to do a Hulk one.
I wonder if it's just anybody who's in the gang who's like over 7 feet tall, they just call him a Bobo. Or if they're all related, or if it's just the same guy. And it's like the same guy, but like sometimes he appears in blackface, which isn't really, that's not cool, but.
Not cool at all.
But he's a bad guy, so, it makes him more punchable.
It doesn't make sense because there's a part where he comes in doubles.
Oh, alright, so there's definitely more than one Abobo. So we'll assume that each one is an individual. And, I don't know if there's just like a lot of, like, they should be recruiting athletes from this town because it's just full of like these giant, huge guys. Like, you could field an entire football team with the Bobos. You could have an all-star center for every team in the NBA with the Bobos. Like there's enough of them in this town. Whatever's going on in the drinking water or whatever, this town is just full of 7.5 feet tall, totally jacked guys.
And if Miss Bo had that many children, she must be really sad at the end of this adventure because all her children got murdered in the span of like 20 minutes. That's a lot of loss. Did other gang members keep like knocking on her door? It's like, I'm sorry, Abobo 1 is dead, and she's weeping, and as he's walking down the stairs, his phone rings. He's like, hello? Oh, okay, and then he walks back up to the door and knocks. Abobo 2 and 3 are dead, and she weeps again, and he's halfway down the sidewalk again, and his phone rings. He's like, come on! They're gonna redo, they'll make another Double Dragon movie, but it's just gonna be like they send Tom Hanks to go save the last Abobo from being killed. It's just like Saving Private Abobo. And at the end, there's just this whole army platoon against the Double Dragons. And it ends, I imagine, traumatically with everyone dying.
Probably. They're like, stop, we have machine guns. And the Lee brothers are just like, okay.
Yeah, but you're going to hit us with the guns instead of shoot them. Like, Tom Hanks is like, I don't understand why I'm doing this.
Somewhere in a almost abandoned arcade, next to a Double Dragon machine, somebody is writing out this script right now on his laptop.
This is brilliant.
He's sitting down at like his like tabletop Pac-Man machine, and he's got his laptop on, and he's just typing away.
So we need to decide: are the brothers heroes or villains?
Without knowing the backstory of what motivated the gang to kidnap the girl. And, I mean, who knows? Maybe they're not really even a gang. Maybe they're just some guys. But without knowing that, the evidence as presented, you're fighting a street gang with a leader who lives in a villainous mountain fortress full of stabbing statues. It looks pretty clear that you are the good guys.
They are the heroes. But you know who the true hero of this story is?
The guy who wrote the music for this game?
The Trans Am.
Yes. Yes, that too.
All Trans Ams are heroes. But yes, the guy who wrote the music for this game, because this game's music is on point.
Yeah. Like, it's like this and Mega Man 2 are like my top 2 soundtracks, I'd say.
I would love this on like vinyl, just because I could force people to listen to it on vinyl. And they're like, this is chiptune on vinyl, and you're the worst human being ever. And I can point out and be like, yes, I am.
The album cover would be fantastic.
Imagine it just be the sweet cabinet art that looks nothing like the brothers at all.
And they have different names.
All right, Brad, I think that does it for Double Dragon. Oh,
well, okay, that does it for Double Dragon, but there's something else you want me to make sure we talked about.
Yeah, we'd like to actually thank Mark from last week for putting us so far off our game. We forgot to mention you can email us at cartridgebaseradio@gmail.com. Since we have a domain, I think we probably could just get an email at our domain.
We could, but at this point, we've already established our email address as cartridgebaseradio@gmail.com.
And literally no one has emailed us.
Yes, but they are used to the idea that if they did want to email us, they would reach us at cartridgebasedradio@gmail.com. We have a like book page. We have a Facebook page.
You're not wrong.
You can subscribe or like us or follow us, and then you'll know every time we update. Well, post will go up. And if you want to really do us a favor, because we are still trying to build this thing, and we've grown pretty well, but we're still we'd like to be even bigger than this. And when you see the Facebook post go up, if you want to like it or share it, that'll notify all your friends that you like Cartridge-Based Radio, and then they'll be like, oh, well, that sounds interesting. Maybe I'll check that out, and, probably they won't, but one might, and then we have one new listener.
And I would like to thank, I forget her name, but the person who shared with us Calvin peeing on Calvin.
Yeah, that is my friend Jessica. It's actually one of my wife's closest friends. But she's also a huge, awesome fan of the show. And she found us after our hockey episode where we talked about, wanting to see such a thing. She found us an image of Calvin peeing on Calvin to infinity. And that was great.
Jessica, you are a saint.
Yes.
You can find us on iTunes, where you can rate and review us.
Yes.
You can find us on Google Play, where you cannot rate and review us.
But tell all your friends. Tell your neighbors. If you go to the mechanic to get your Trans Am worked on, tell the mechanic. If you're beating up dudes in an alley, tell them. Just be wailing on, be like, play Cartridge-Based Radio, the podcast. Tell
them before they die, though. And if they do die, just grab their phone, and if it's unlocked, subscribe.
Yes, listeners, go out, beat people up, take their phones, and subscribe them.
I would like to say all that was a joke.
Yeah, don't do that.
No, do not grab people by the ears and drive their face into your knee. So, all right, Brad. I'm Donald. Once again, that's Brad. And we are Cartridge-Based Radio, and we will see you next week. We're not here to tear into the world building of The Karate Kid and how you can't run while dressed like a shower. That's just impossible.